Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
And we're talking about a trend that we're seeing increase around the world, and that is we're seeing more P.A.N.Ks out there, professional aunts with no kids.
Exactly. And I should mention that I had never heard of this term myself before today's lesson, so I don't know how many people actually use this term, but you may hear it discussed in the news when we talk about this particular phenomenon. Again, professional aunts who don't want to work, and I suppose you could call uncles who don't want to have kids. You could call them punks. Professional uncles, no kids.
Oh, but punk already means something in English, so I would be careful with that. Now, remember, if it's an acronym, it's all capital letters. So if you saw punk that was just lowercase, you would know it's kind of a jerk. A punk, yeah. Punks are
like
usually...
punk rock, you know.
Oh, well, that too, but I was thinking punks on the street, like teenagers who are rebellious, who don't go to class.
Yeah, kids who are afraid to go climb mountains or something. You could call them a gutless punk or something like that. But we're talking about, again, professional aunts with no kids who'd rather hang out with the kids of their siblings as opposed to having their own. And they, of course, have careers as well. So let's find out more about this phenomenon in society. Let's read through the entire contents of our lesson now at one time.
The role of the aunt is often overlooked. Historically, the image of the childless spinster is a negative stereotype used to warn against not having children. In recent years, there have been attempts to update the concept of the aunt. Melanie Notkin, a New York-based author and entrepreneur, is a strong aunt advocate. Her plans to have children never came to fruition. Instead, her nieces and nephews became the center of her life. When she noticed that comparable situations were happening to her friends, she realized not all women desire their own children. However, this group of child-free women gets no real recognition in society. She felt there was business potential in this, so she launched a website and created the acronym P.A.N.K. According to Notkin, a P.A.N.K is a woman who is celebrated for achieving professional and financial success. She is well-educated, well-traveled, and finds caring for the children of her siblings and friends rewarding and mutually beneficial. This rebranding touched a wide audience of women. One woman reached out to Notkin, stating that she was struggling with infertility. The woman felt that although she was unable to be a mother, she was still able to play a valuable maternal role. Notkin's work helped her feel valid and acknowledged her as an aunt. Indeed, aunts provide for children in ways that parents cannot. Without the direct responsibilities of a parent, aunts are able to provide a source of non-judgmental and unconditional love. P.A.N.Ks are becoming an important resource in the contemporary family. As the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child.
Okay, let's get to it. Let's explain the contents of today's lesson. It's the second part of our lesson about P.A.N.K, the rise of P.A.N.K, professional aunt, no kids. And the role of the aunt is often overlooked. Okay, so of course, if your parents, your siblings come over and they are your children's uncles and aunts, of course, but they're kind of fun. Oh, Uncle Albert is coming over. He's going to bring you some treats or something. Or Aunt Sally or whatever is coming over. But their role is usually overlooked. They're just coming over to visit, or we refer to them in conversation, but we don't really consider them as having or playing a major role in raising our kids.
Right. Although, I've seen it happen where a child, especially during their teenage years or early 20s, they sometimes are actually much closer to their aunts than their own mom or parents. So, yeah, it depends on the family. I happen to be a well-liked aunt, I must say. It has something to do with me sending my nieces and nephews things for their birthdays. But Yeah, I think it's pretty wonderful if you can be blessed with good parents and great aunts as well. So the role of the aunt is often overlooked. And as we've mentioned, or at least we did in day one, historically, there was this image of the childless spinster. A spinster is somebody, a female, it has to be a female, who never gets married. And if you read back in history, those were women who were usually poor, pitiful people. You know, there wasn't a chance to actually go out and start your own business. You were usually stuck depending on maybe a brother to help provide for you. So it was a tough time back then. So childless spinster was really a negative stereotype. If you are talking about a stereotype, it's usually a generalized way to view something. We tend to oversimplify life when we put a stereotype on a person, like all women are bad drivers. Well, I can tell you in my family, there are 2 good drivers who are my sisters and 2 bad drivers. So it just depends. Be careful with stereotypes. Now, there is a reason why we have a stereotype, but it is oversimplified.
Right. Yeah, we can understand the world better if we stereotype people, make things simple, even though we know we're not supposed to judge people so generally.
Right.
But again, childish spinster is not really a term that's used anymore. And if you use this term, it's probably going to be an insult, even if the woman is over 60 and unmarried and doesn't have kids. You just have to respect that position and don't use this term to describe them. And in recent years, there have been attempts to update the concept of the aunt. Well, let's talk about Melanie Notkin, who is a New York-based author and entrepreneur, and she is a strong aunt advocate. Okay, so this is in New York City. She writes books, novels, or articles for newspapers and magazines or websites. So she's New York-based. That's where she works. That's where she lives. And she's also an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is like a business person who has started a business, and they do a lot for that business. But in so doing, they're taking some kinds of risks. You know, they're setting up a business in a field that is kind of new, and they're not really sure if they're going to make any money. So it's kind of risky.
It is.
So yeah, that's when we describe an entrepreneur, somebody who starts a new business, kind of in a new field. They'll probably be successful, but you never know.
You never know, but it's fun and exciting if you can do it. You usually need venture capital, or VC, as people say out there. I have a nephew who is an entrepreneur, and venture capital is quite tight right now. It's hard to start new businesses. But this particular lady, Melanie Notkin, she was a very strong aunt advocate. If you're an advocate for something, you're supporting some sort of public policy or cause. And she thought, we need to celebrate aunts a lot more, especially the ones who are childless. So her plans to have children never came to fruition. If something comes to fruition, it just means some sort of plan or project is actually realized. It takes place. It happens. So when things come to fruition, that's actually a phrase we use. You can't say something fruitions. Nope, you can't say that. Fruition is only a noun. So the way we usually talk about it, again, is come to fruition. Instead, her nieces and nephews became the center of her life. She kind of just adopted them as, you know, kind of a semi-mom, but she was an aunt.
Right, so maybe when she was in junior high or high school, she wanted to have kids when she was older, but it just didn't work out for her. She didn't meet the right guy. She didn't want to force herself to marry somebody just to have kids, and so she ended up single. But still, she found a good substitute for not having her own kids. She liked to hang around her nieces and nephews. Of course, the niece is the daughter of your brother or sister, and the nephew is the son of your brother or sister. And they became the center of her life. And when she noticed that comparable situations were happening to her friends, she realized not all women desire their own children. So she wasn't the only one, okay? Maybe she thought for a while that, gee, I'm the only person who doesn't have her own kids. I'm the only person who is hanging out with her nieces and nephews. But she noticed that comparable situations or similar situations were not happening to her friends. She had a lot of friends who were in the same comparable situation.
Or you could say she had a lot of friends in the same boat. If you're in the same boat with somebody, you're in the same situation. It could be good or bad. Usually it's more negative. You're in a boat out there on the ocean, no way to paddle home. So yeah, comparable situations.
And we have got the phrase here. We have the phrase here, not all, which means you can't really stereotype this. You might meet somebody from Japan, and the person probably says, "Oh, I don't like sushi." Well, not all Japanese people like sushi, for example, or not all Americans like hamburgers or pizza. Some people hate those things. And here, not all women desire to have their own children. They like things just the way they are.
I need to mention quickly, guys, comparable is really the best way to pronounce this word, but you will hear some people say comparable. I know that's probably easier for you out there because compare and comparable are a lot closer than comparable and compare. But just so you know, comparable is probably the one you need to learn. But you will hear people say comparable. Right now, though, someone who is going to continue helping explain some of these things is our Chinese teacher. Let's listen now.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们昨天介绍 P.A.N.K 族，我们说阿姨的角色就是常常会被忽略，所以才会出现了所谓的 P.A.N.K 族。那我们昨天有说 P.A.N.K 族的意思就是 professional and no kids， 是全职的阿姨，而且是没有小孩的哦。不过为什么阿姨的角色常常会被忽略呢？因为从历史上来看，其实我们在英文或者是中文都常常会有一些对女生的刻板印象啊，也不只是女生啦，对一些事情都会有刻板印象。比如说好 spinster 这个字在第一段第二句的地方，那它这个 spinster 这个字，如果你真的去查英文单字的话，它有时候会出现所谓老处女这三个字，那这就是一个贬义啊，好像是讲人家不生小孩啊，没人要啊这种感觉。同样的，在英文当中也是有这样的单字。第二句当中啊，我们还是有看到一个关系子句的简化哦，我们把它抓出来。它的先行词是 a negative stereotype， 就是一个负面的那种刻板印象。那这个所谓的 childless spinster 负面的刻板印象怎么样呢？ used 这边我们左括号，句尾右括号，那它简化省略的是 which 或者是 that 跟 be 动词的 is， 它就是被用来警告那一些如果你不生小孩的这个人我们就说你是 childless spinster，这样子真的不太好。不过近年来因为一直不断有人尝试着希望能够把阿姨这个 concept 这个概念可以把它 update 一下，到底是谁呢？第一段第四句就出现我们的主角啦。原来这个 P.A.N.K 这会有这个词的出现就是因为这个纽约作家兼企业家，他的名字叫做 Melanie Nutkin， 他就是一个很坚定的阿姨拥护者。在第一段第四句最后一个字，这个字的拥护者叫做 advocate， 这是名词哦。如果你当动词的拥护什么样的主义，拥护什么样的概念，可以用 advocate。好，那其实他想生小孩，但是他的计划从来都没有实现。那到底怎么样呢？后来这个第六句相反的，好，我们先把 instead 把它圈起来。其实 instead 它并不是相反的意思哦。instead 前面通常是一个模糊的陈述，通常会有搭配一个 not 或出现 never。比如说Melanie Nutkin 她想要生小孩，但是没有生。好，那这个情况到底有没有暗示出她到底如何呢？也没有仔细的说明到底如何。所以其实 instead 之后加上的是一个精准的事实，我们可以把它代替成in fact， 事实上，甚至是 rather。 那到底他过什么生活呢？我们才看到精准的事实，原来他的侄子侄女就是他的生活重心。那后来他发现他朋友也有类似的情况，这个类似情况在第一段第7句，我们可以把这个 comparable situations 可以把它画起来。 要不然我们说类似，好像似乎都只会用 similar 哦。那他就突然意识到说，其实并不是每一个女生都会想要有自己的孩子诶。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, let's continue with our lesson. We're talking about P.A.N.Ks, professional ants who have no kids.
Yeah.
They've probably got a pretty good income, but they don't have children of their own, and they either made this decision themselves or it just didn't happen, and the plans to get married and have children just did not come to fruition. But then, of course, they realize that they still like kids, so they hang around the kids of their brothers and sisters. And this group is a group of child-free children. This is a group of child-free women. But we're saying, however, this group of child-free women gets no real recognition in society. Now, recognition is a noun. That just means somebody admits that you've done something, you've performed some kind of action, or you're in some kind of position, and you want people to know about it, and you want them to respect it. So that's recognition. We often use this when we talk about countries in the world. Recognition refers to when one country says that the government of that country is the actual legitimate government of that country. You recognize that country.
Yeah, so that's more like diplomatic recognition. We don't recognize that country. I think some countries don't particularly like leaders who have taken over in some sort of coup, which is a military overthrowing of a government that was actually hopefully elected by the people. So yeah, they won't be recognized if they're doing things that are wrong. So here, this group of child-free women really doesn't get any real recognition in society. And so Melanie Notkin felt like there was a business opportunity here. She obviously thinks in a way that most entrepreneurs do. If you're an entrepreneur, you're looking for an area that isn't being served by some business, and you think, this is my opportunity to start a new business, and that's what she did. She launched a website. To launch just means to start something new here. She started a new website, and she's the one who created that kind of fun acronym P.A.N.K. And we know that P.A.N.K stands again for professional ant, no kids.
Exactly. So she is the one who coined the term, and I think it's becoming more and more popular all the time. Again, a P.A.N.K is a woman who is celebrated or recognized for achieving professional and financial success without having children and without being looked down upon for not having children. And here we're talking about financial success. That just means you have a profitable career, a successful career that pays you a lot of money.
It can, or you can lose a lot of money. So, and here's another phrase we use. If you did invest in a new company and they went belly up, they went bankrupt, you probably lost your shirt, which means you lost all your money. Now, Notkin is she's an entrepreneur and she started this so you could celebrate, or the world could celebrate, women who had achieved professional and financial success, people who are able to do well financially. I don't know how this includes P.A.N.Ks out there that really aren't financially successful or who don't really consider themselves professional. This is really geared toward women who are out there working in business, I would say, primarily, or who have independent resources. So if you're talking about financial success, you're talking about success in a way where you've made money to pay for your lifestyle and whatever you want to do. You're financially successful. And these are professional women. Usually we describe professional women as women who have done a lot of studying. They probably graduated from school, from college, or maybe even from grad school, and are doing well out there in the business world.
Right, and of course she's New York based, so she has to be successful, otherwise she could not survive there.
It costs a lot of money to live there.
If she weren't successful, maybe she'd have to move to some small town in Nebraska or something like that and be a high school librarian. But no, she's successful, she's well educated, so she lives in New York City, and she's well traveled. She's been around the world, she's met different people, she knows how things work, and finds caring for children of her siblings and friends rewarding and mutually beneficial. So yes, indeed, if you're an aunt or an uncle for that matter and you don't have your own kids, it's always fun, maybe not always, but most of the time it's fun to visit your nieces and nephews and hang out with them, play games with them, buy presents for them, go out for meals with them. And she thought that that was quite rewarding, which means it's fun for you and you get something out of it. And we're also describing it as being mutually beneficial, which means she gained something from it and the kids gained something from it as well.
Right. So, moving on to the next paragraph here, it says the rebranding. This rebranding touched a wide audience of women. If you rebrand something, which happens a lot in today's current world, you try to update the image of a particular situation or even a company. Maybe a company has some bad publicity because they produced something that was defective or maybe even hurt people, and they wanted to rebrand their image so people would forget about the bad stuff and see their company in a good light. That's rebranding. So one woman reached out to Notkin after she started her website, and she said, you know what? I'm struggling with infertility. If you reach out to somebody, it just means you get in touch with someone. And we use that quite often these days, to reach out to someone. It doesn't mean to physically touch them, just means to get in contact with somebody. And if you're struggling with infertility, you're unable to get pregnant.
Right, to reach out to somebody also implies that it's a little difficult to do. It means that you had to pluck up the courage and contact them and send them a letter or something, and they may or may not have been able to respond to you. But she decided to contact Notkin to reach out to her, and she said that she was struggling with infertility. I just can't get pregnant. I can't have my own kids. And the woman felt that although she was unable to be a mother, she was still able to play a valuable maternal role. So yes, indeed, this can be frustrating, of course, for couples who can't have kids for whatever reason. And yes, indeed, she probably really wanted to be a mother, but she was unable to do so. But still, she found being an aunt to be quite rewarding. It was quite valuable to play this maternal role.
Her work helped her feel valid. Valid just means you're worthwhile. We use valid to talk about whether something has expired, like your yo-yo car. Maybe it's no longer valid. You can't use it, or your driver's license expires. Here, it means you actually feel like you have value to society. Helped her feel valid, worthwhile, somebody that could really contribute. And it helped this lady feel acknowledged as an aunt. Now, indeed, aunts provide for children in ways that parents can't. Oh, this is so true. Without the direct responsibilities of a parent, aunts are able to provide a source of non-judgmental and unconditional love. If you're non-judgmental, you don't look at someone's situation and think, oh, I can't believe they're doing that. I would never do that. That's wrong. And unconditional love is love that parents should give to their kids, which just means no matter what, you love them. The love never stops. Even though you might not get good grades or you steal something and you're arrested and put in prison, parents should still shower you with love. They can tell you did something wrong, but you should always be loved.
Yeah, the parents may be putting the kids under pressure to get 100 points on the exam or something, but the aunt and the uncle don't really care so much about that, so that's unconditional love. P.A.N.Ks are becoming an important resource in the contemporary family or in the modern family. And as the saying goes, as we say, it takes a village to raise a child. Indeed, that is a phrase that is often used. We all have to work together to raise children, otherwise they become bad apples. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
但是这群没有生小孩的女生啊，在社会上并没有得到真正的认可。我们在这篇文章当中看到的认可，除了在第一段第8句看到的 recognition 之外，也还会看到 acknowledgement 在后面一点的地方。好，那他就觉得这蕴含了这个很多的商业潜力所以 Melanie Nakin 啊，他就成立了一个网站。那这里的 launch 我们还是要再把它抓出来，在英文这个高中英文当中，好，我们第一段第9句的这个 launch start launch a website launch a war launch a campaign 是很常用的 start 开始啊起草啊成立的意思，就出现了这个所谓的 P.A.N.K 这个 acronym。好啦，不过根据这个 Nakin 他们的说法，他有下个定义所谓的 P.A.N.K 族其实它是指因为职涯或者是经济上取得成就，而且受到赞扬的女性，所以第一段第10句很重要，这个下个定义。他说 A P.A.N.K is a woman 先行词 a woman who 到句尾左右括号起来限定用法的关系子句，这个括号当中 be celebrated for something 我们可以抓出来，其实它就是 be famous for something 因为什么原因而出名的，因为什么原因而受到赞扬。而且除此之外，这些女性都是 well educated 在11句受过良好教育 well traveled 旅游经验很丰富，而且这些女性会觉得照顾她兄弟姐妹跟朋友的小孩是很有意义对彼此都是有益的。当然11句这边逗点之后的 and 我们先看到一个 find 的用法，在这里的 find 不是发现他会把它翻成觉得认为 A 是 B 的状态，也就是说 find 后面会有一个受词，在这句话当中的受词是4个单字 caring for the children 后面带着形容词子句形容词片语 of her siblings and friends 受词有点长从 caring 一直到 friends 补语才出现，他觉得这件事怎么样呢？Rewarding 很值得 and mutually beneficial 相互都是有益的。所以这种形象的再造出现的英文单字叫做 Rebranding， 这种形象的再造出现在第2段的第1句的地方。这个形象的塑造其实就触动了很多女性的受众其中就有一个妇女，她就联系了 Nakin， 她说她一直在受到不孕症所苦。好，我们还是要谈一下，如果真的很想生又生不出来，这个不孕症出现在第2段第2句最后一个字 infertility。 infertile 就是没有办法这个生育的，或者是土地不富饶的，所以 infertility 也有不孕症的意思。而那位妇女觉得自己虽然当不了母亲，但是可以扮演一个很有母爱的角色，这种阿姨也可以第3句我们接着看，有母爱的这个形容词或者中文翻成慈爱的就叫做 maternal。所以虽然自己是阿姨，但是可以像妈妈这样子有很慈爱有母爱所以 Nakin 他的努力就让他觉得自己身为一个阿姨其实可以发挥功能，而且也被认可出现了在下面这句话当中第2段的第4句有没有出现一个动词叫做 acknowledged， 那这里呢也是公认认可的意思。实际上也是如此因为阿姨们她其实可以以父母没有办法做到的这种方式来提供给小孩子所需要的东西，所以没有这种父母的直属责任的话，阿姨反而可以做很多事情我们就说啦，中文讲说养小孩真的不容易，英文真的有一句话英文这句话第2段最后一句，首先我们看到最后一句的 as the saying goes 如同这一句话谚语所说的，逗点之后我们看到的重点是 it takes a village to raise a child 如果要养个小孩要一村的人大家一起帮忙才能够养小孩呢。以上是我们今天内容，我是安娜，我们下次见。
That's it, guys. We hope you learned a lot. And maybe you have a P.A.N.K in your family. If you do, shower her with love because some aunts are really wonderful, wonderful allies and friends in your life. And they'll always care about you. Hopefully. That's how I feel, at least. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.